Hello, everyone. We're back to the soccer/football circuit. We have been taking a little run here and there, as we'll call it, in terms of topics and everything else. And we have a gentleman here who has been around some marquee players. He has done well for himself professionally. And I would like him to introduce himself and give us a little of his background before we go in depth into his information.
Good evening. My name is Ainsley Romany from Scarborough, Ontario. Born in '81, played youth soccer in Scarborough for my whole life. From Scarborough, Zuri to West Rouge to North Scarborough, and then I ended off with Glen Shields. And then from Glen Shields, I ended up in the States on a scholarship, half soccer, half track to one school, and then transferred over to Canisius College in Buffalo to play soccer.
So as we get this vehicle fully in gear here, we'll check the transmission very good and the steering. So we'll make some tunes. So the scholarship you get that you end up in Buffalo, was that something you pursuing all along? And what type of scholarship was it in terms of what were you excelling at that time?
It's a good question, because growing up and playing ball in that era, I was a minion amongst Sharks in Scarborough and in Toronto. The '81, '82 class, there were a plethora of different talents all around the city. And for whatever reasons, I was never like a top talent. I'm man enough to admit it now, but I worked at a very, very hard, focused work ethic. And I just continued working at my craft. And I didn't have many options going into university because of the number of players that were in my generation. I mean, we're talking guys like probably 5 guys made the national team, U20 national team on the Canadian side. We had players that went to universities and colleges all through the United States, all from the '81 or '82 era. So fortunately for me, I went to school in Missouri on a track and soccer scholarship, did really well in school, and wanted to come closer to home. And I had 2 friends at the time were at school at Canisius College in Buffalo, Ryan Dummett and Justin Phillips. And they were just trying to recruit me to come over to Canisius with them, in which I agreed. And I was able to get a half soccer and academic scholarship.
That's where I was heading. You just answered the next question because I wanted to know if it was full scholar, half scholar, or what it was. Seeing that you mentioned the fact that you maybe, and could be more modest, you were not the most talented. To be seen, and you said you did well in school, did you mean academically or because I want for the young people to understand how this thing works?
So it's funny because in high school, that's all that I wanted was to go away and play soccer. But what I didn't realize was that I had to do my SATs. So SATs is an entrance exam into the colleges or universities in the US. I did the SATs twice and I failed it in both miserably. So the loophole is that there are other colleges falling under a non-affiliate league called NAIA, and I don't remember what the acronym stands for, but basically they have foreign professionals that want to go to school. These schools give scholarships and you get to compete.
That's beyond the NCAA, right? Correct?
Yeah, that's beyond NCAA. So what it was advised to me was that I would go to one of those schools, do well in school, play football, and then I could transfer to an NCAA school, is what I did. So when I went to school in Missouri, I made sure that I buckled down on my schoolwork, made sure that I earned 2 dean's lists. So I was on the dean's list on both semesters. And then I played soccer. Our team wasn't very good. And then I transferred to Canisius College.
And from Canisius College, how did that evolve for you? Because I know we have a lot to cover based on the preempt, Germany and all these places to cover. So how was Canisius and what were your vision from there looking forward? Was it coming back here? Was there anything offering here in terms of pro, or was it all about going Europe?
At that time, Europe was always the dream, always the end goal. But what I didn't know was that going to Europe in itself, football is a totally different stratosphere from what I grew up to. And thinking that going to the college route would have prepared me for that transition. I'm just a young kid with no real guidance at that point. The Canisius experience was an experience. Our team wasn't, we didn't do very well, but I was able to learn more about myself during that time and to prepare me for, what my journey was after that time. And then, being able to obtain a degree, it always helps. But, NCAA was good for that perspective. And, at least, come 22 graduating, at least, I could go after my dream, but I had something to rely on if my dream failed.
Can you give us a little your parenting background, seeing that you were born here, correct?
I was born here. My parents are from the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. I had the pleasure of frequently visiting Trinidad as a child growing up to the point where when I was 19, I received a phone call from a friend of mine by the name of Jonathan Westmass. And Jonathan was at school at Hartwick College. And he had said that the national team was looking for players and wanted to know if I was available to come and play with the U20s at the time. Of course, I jumped on the opportunity. So myself, Jonathan Westmass, and Sheldon Cooper went to Panama and Honduras with the Trinidad and Tobago national team to play 4 games.
Okay.
That's what I did.
So you graduated, you can get a job, but it seems like you're still holding on to this big baller theory.
Yeah.
What happened, you could get a job, but you decide to pursue your football/soccer career?
That's exactly it. And not to mention that, my one childhood friend was constantly in my ear to come visit him. And our conversations were always, yo, when you coming to visit me? Back then, when he moved to France, I can show you.
You're talking about Julian here?
I'm talking about Julian here. We used to write each other handwritten letters back and forth.
This is before, Julian Guzman, ladies and gentlemen.
This is before the email era where we would write each other. But during my time in Buffalo, we would correspond via MSN. And it was always, when are you coming to visit me? When are you coming to visit me? I'll set you up. I'll set you up. So when I graduated college, the summer after, I think it was later on in the summer, maybe in the fall, is when I went over to Germany.
Okay. Did you have a trial lined up, or you just went over to visit your boy?
I went over to visit my boy just to see how he was living, to understand or to get a glimpse of the culture. I'd been to Germany years before, but never on this magnitude, never as an adult. And it was an experience that I would never forget. Not just for me, but just to kind of see the man that he had become. He had already been in Europe at that point, probably better part of 6 years. So a lot of things have changed from his perspective, but it was an eye opener, but something that I would always be grateful for him, because bringing me in to see how he lived, to see how hard he had to work to get to where he was. It was something that I aspired to.
What team was he in at the time?
Hanover 96.
Okay.
Yeah, so he was in the Bundesliga.
Did you get to watch the games? You watch him perform? And what did you think about it? You were ready? You think you were ready or not?
I was able to watch the games. I was able to watch practices, and from the outside looking in, I myself as a player, as a baller, I'm like, yeah, of course I could play with these guys. But the biggest problem, or the biggest obstacle for young Canadians going to Europe, to Germany especially, was the tactical part of the game. The tactical part of the game, they're so far advanced than Canadians, it's not even funny. And Germans are very methodical in their thinking. During that time, he also played with two other Americans, one by the name of Steve Trundolo and the other Clint Mathis. But Steve was a little bit closer to Julian. And because of their relationship, I actually befriended Steve during my time in Germany. And we're talking Steve, went to the World Cup 3 times with the US national team. I don't know, capped over 50 or 60 times with the national team. I don't even remember how many times. But it just, they're just too tactically advanced.
Can you break that down to specifics when you say tactically advanced? Give me an example if you could.
For sure. So for an example, there's different systems that we play in soccer. Typical system would be 4 defenders, 4 midfielders, and then 2 forwards. We call that a 4-4-2. There are clubs that would play a different system with 4 defenders, 3 midfielders, and 3 attackers. And what I mean by tactics is that the Germans, Europeans in general, they know once a left back has a ball, what the first action of that left back, what is he looking for? Now, typically in Canada, we're looking to, some of us try to play a possession-based football, or they'll just try to hit it long, just kick it. But they're always looking for a diagonal ball across, or looking for the first or for the last forward, which is their number 9. And something that I was never really taught ever. And it confused me, because I might make a very good pass, to a midfielder or to the winger, but that's not what they wanted. And when you're in that environment and when you're not doing what they expect, it's almost like a waste of time. And I was already 22 at the time. And again, something that Canadians here don't understand. And then also the transitional part of the games, where, they may not be as fast as North Americans in the general sense, but they're thinking from transitioning from offense to defense, or defense to offense it's unbelievable how well they think, and how efficient, especially Germans are. They're very, very efficient soccer players, but more importantly, they're very efficient people in general.
So let me ask you, did you pick up that while you were there on that because I realized you went back on that first instant, and if you did that help you in coming back, and how did your journey unfold after that, with either that first knowledge of knowing what they wanted, and how did that whole evolve? Did you come back to Toronto? How did things evolve for you?
Yeah, well, it's funny, because I came back to Toronto. I'd finished the halfway through the season with, I was playing with a team called Metro Lions in CPSL, and the big.
But if you say Metro Lions, I have to interject. That's after, well, because if I remember correctly, you were there for the Portmore game.
That's correct. That's correct.
So that's right after okay, go ahead.
That's right. So that summer, I ended up going to Germany for about a month or a half. I can't remember how long. But when I came back from Germany to Metro Lions, the one thing that stood out very clearly in my mind was the culture, how different the culture was from being in Europe versus being in Scarborough, Ontario. And what I mean by that, from the football sense, football in Germany was very rich. It's all that they know. It's all that they want. It's all that they need. They breathe. Here, we're battling other sports. We're battling other cultures, right? For example, we live in, at the time I was in Scarborough. Hockey is our culture here. We're a hockey town. they're a strictly soccer nation. And so trying to adapt and trying to take what I learned from Germany to bring here was good from the efficient side. It was good from outside of football. There's a story that I typically share with some of my young guys with time. I had my coach in Germany. He didn't speak any English. The most English he could tell you was bye. And he was saying in his broken English to me that I needed to be on time for practice. The practice started at 6:30 and I would arrive at 6:30. But he would say to me, no, practice starts at 6:30. I need you here for 6:15, the latest. It's in between 6 o'clock and 6:15. 6 o'clock to 6:15 was the time I needed to arrive for practice. And that's just a different culture from what I know.
So what was there? Was the grid set up? Were the other players there? Did you not figure that out based on what you were meeting at 6:30? Things were going on, or people were already changed, dressed, and everything else?
So I was training with Hanover 96's second team at the time, and their facility was separate from the professional. And I figured it out, but you know, when you're not accustomed to certain things and you're not being told certain things, you don't know. And I didn't know. And so showing up, practice was scheduled for 6:30, showing up just minutes before 6:30, I thought it was acceptable, and clearly it wasn't. But that's just the German culture. And then to make matters even worse, the first or the second day that I showed up for practice, they had a team meeting, but I was not privy to the team meeting because I wasn't on the team. So myself and there was another kid from Toronto trying out as well. We had to wait in the change room for like 40 minutes, waiting for these guys to finish their meeting. And once they finish their meeting, the coach comes down and says, okay, we're not training today, we're running. So, coming from a culture like Toronto, West Indian, laid back, yes, we can run, but we don't like to run. And the first I remember, it was we had to run 16 laps around the track, but it was all interval running. So the first lap was like, you can run it in under a minute, under 2 minutes. But in the second lap, you have to run it in under a minute. You do it 16 times, 8 times each. It was unbelievable, unbelievable experience.
So how things unfold, because you end up playing, I think, at one time. And how was that for you? How was playing there? And did it help now because you came back, you had a career here after that, right? After you played over there.
I did.
Let's see how it worked for you.
It wasn't, again, culture. You think that but you don't know. And when you're in that mix, and when you're there fighting with not just German players, but you're fighting with players who come from Africa, who come from South America, who come from nothing, and all they know is to survive through football. You're coming against a different beast. I never came up against players who are fighting for their lives, who are fighting to feed their families. Again, something part of the culture that I grew up to that no one ever knew. Yeah, I mean, I struggled. I didn't come from a typical family with mother and father. I come from a single parent family, and we struggled growing up. But this is something entirely different. I ended up playing with a local 6th division club in Hanover, and it was great. I mean, I was able to quickly acclimatize myself to the team. The coach from the team was friends with the assistant coach at Hanover, and he liked me a lot. And so I felt it was a good situation for me to get acclimatized to the culture and to the style of play. to training, how hard they train. You know, training seemed like Champions League every day. It was just so hard and so rigorous and so direct. You know, the direct of the coach and the coaching staff. You know, there was times where it was snowing, and in my mind, I'm like, oh, if it's snowing, then you know, there's no training, there's no practice, and they're like, no, we have training, we train on the pitch next to our practice field, and this practice field is like a clay, it's like a red clay, and we're training on this. In my head, I'm like, what is this? I think they call it Rashplatz, which is like a hard clay, and that's where we train. Snow, still through the snow, and we train. And again, coming from Canada, when it snowed, we found ourselves inside, right?
Mhm.
So it was interesting from that perspective. But
So how many games you played over there? How many games?
I played a season and a half, so I played, I'd say upwards of 40 games.
Second level or what level?
For the first team of that club, but it was the 6th division. So in Germany at the time, we were talking back in 2004, 2005, they had 12 divisions. So you yourself said, you know what, I want to buy a club in the 12th division. And that year you win that league. In 11 years, if you keep winning, you get promoted, you can play in the Bundesliga. So all the leagues are connected. So my team happened to be in the 6th division, which I was halfway to where I wanted to be. But I tell you, man, it was very, very difficult to get out of that.
Oh, okay. So now you left there and you came back here, and who you played for after? That wasn't the Metro Lions you came back for. Did you play with anybody?
So I went to Germany for about a month and a half. I came back home, played with the Metro Lions. I played the game against Portmore United, the team from Jamaica. We ended up going to the semifinals in that year, and I think losing to the semifinals to York Region, I believe, or Shooters. I can't remember which team we lost to. Stayed home for a bit, just kind of training and getting myself ready to go back in March of the following year. So then I was there for March for 2 years.
Okay, but if I remember correctly, though, you said you were a product of Glen Shields.
Correct.
So where did that fit in?
So Glen Shields at the time had a CPSL team. And from when I was 17, I was on the youth team at Glen Shields. And the technical director at the time had an idea where he wanted to promote the younger players to play with the pro players, the semi-pro players at the time. So I was one of those youth players that was promoted from time to time to play with the semi-pro boys. The coach at the time, he was very strict at Glen Shields. He had a very Pep-like control over the players, because he felt that.
And you say Pep, like you mean Guardiola?
Pep Guardiola, yeah. He had a very Pep. He wanted to control everything. Again, something that I wasn't used to or accustomed to.
So what coach is that?
His name was Dave Benning. A very knowledgeable coach, a very experienced coach, and a coach that demanded perfection as much as he could. Now I appreciated it because it was a structure. It was you know, him working with players from Toronto who didn't have fathers in their lives, and in some small ways he provided that, and he was a father to some of us in that, and not in all ways, but in most ways. And so, you know, thinking back to my development and thinking back to from 17 to like 19, those key years, he was a big part of my development and me being able to play with the big boys. So,
and that was before you went to Germany, correct?
That was before, yeah, before college and everything. That was
right. So,
right. That was before college. And then to understand, like, the pro team, we call them the pro players, but the players on that team, we're talking Peter Firebrace. We're talking Paul Moore. We're talking Marco Antonucci. We're talking Agostino Valencia. We're talking some top ballers in the city, right? And so he's preparing us to train with these guys. Mike Glasgow, another one. These are some big time players that were in the city, and he's preparing us to train with these guys and also to play with these guys. So
okay,
good.
So I know you do camps. The relationship with the Guzman family is forever.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I met you with the Souls camp.
Mm-hmm.
How did that unfold? Where did that thinking come in? How, were you contacted, and what was your function in that, and how did that come into fruition?
So Soul Soccer was a camp designed by Jonathan de Guzman. So Jonathan de Guzman is Julian de Guzman's younger brother. He's also like my younger brother. We all have a very unique relationship. We always have, and I believe we always will. Jonathan at the time was playing for Napoli, I believe, in the Italian first division, and had this idea that he wanted to come back and give back to the youth in Toronto to do a camp over Christmas. But we wanted to do something a little bit different than from what the youth in Toronto experienced. So we created this camp where he brought over 2 players that he played with as coaches to train kids on a 3-day camp. And he also himself was a coach. So this was an opportunity for kids to interact with a fellow Canadian who played in Toronto, played in Scarborough, was from Scarborough, moved to Holland when he was 11 years old, fought his way through all the adversity that he possibly could to make it with Feyenoord, which is a big club in Holland. Not to mention, he made the Dutch national team and went to the World Cup. I mean, this is levels that we could only dream of, and here it is. This kid did that, and so he wanted to give the kids in Toronto an idea, and so we created this camp. It was a 3-day camp where we had these guys come in. It was successful the first year. The second year, when I met you, we decided that we wanted to give back to the community, and so my role in the camp was basically just to facilitate, to organize, to get the word out there, to connect people. So the second year when we did it, I contacted a family, an extended family member of mine by the name of Dwayne Di Rosario, and said to Dwayne that we want to do a fundraiser in conjunction with Soul Soccer, and we were looking for an organization in which to donate money to, and he has his D-Row Foundation, whom previous years I had worked with. And I thought that it would have been a nice way to link the two, as they were both, big soccer players from Scarborough. With Dwayne had finished his career at that time, but he's still very much connected to the community. And so we created an in-house 4-team tournament comprised of former professionals and current professionals. And Jonathan played in the game with his team. Andrew Ornock, who's a owner of Dutch Connection Football, he was there playing with Jonathan because he grew up playing with Jonathan. Julian was there, but Julian didn't play. He had a knee injury. But we had Dwayne playing. He had a team. Jonathan Osorio had a team with his boys. AJ Gray, I believe his name is, he had a team with his boys.
I think Lauren was there too.
Kyle might have been there, yeah. I don't know. Yeah, he might have been there. I don't think he played though. It was a way just to connect the community with football, to bring faces together. At the time, we had Phil Ionetti, who was responsible for Lika Sports. He had sponsored the event, with the kits and stuff like that, and it was beautiful just to see everyone out, especially during Christmas, and then to give back for a cause. So that's essentially what Soul Soccer was. that morphed into the following year, where Jonathan said, you know what, it would be nice that, you know, I give an opportunity for these kids to experience what I did in Europe. So the idea was now.
Is that prior to going Mississauga, or that's the last?
That was prior to going to Mississauga. So he picked two players, Jonathan and the staff picked two players from the two best players from the camp to an all expense paid trip to his club that he was at to train with the youth academy team. So at the time, Jonathan was on loan with Chievo Verona in Serie A. And the two players he picked, he flew them out on their March break, and they were able to train with the Chievo Verona youth academy team. And so that was the starting point. It was successful. The kids had a great time. They learned a lot. The coaches invited both of those kids to come back, which is something that's, it's unheard of. They both wanted to come back, but for whatever reasons, it didn't transpire until the next one. We did the next camp the following year in Mississauga.
And what was the reason for the change of location?
The change of location was primarily because we wanted to be in a environment where we were accessible for everyone, and the location in Mississauga happened to be right off the highway, which was a little bit easier to get to from all corners of the city, as opposed to Monarch Park. I mean, Monarch Park was great, but it was, you know, in the city, you know, there wasn't a highway to get there per se. And plus, this facility in Mississauga is also owned by the same guys that own Monarch Park. So they were opening this in Mississauga, and I kind of pitched us the idea of coming to Mississauga. And then it also gave us an opportunity to work with more players. So we went from having a cap of 60 players to a cap of about 100 players.
That's great.
Yeah.
So from that point of view, participation-wise, you'll have to say that was a success?
It was a huge success from a participation standpoint. And then not to mention, we were able to, again, to connect the community together with other ballers. So for an example, Daniil Henry, you know, the Canadian national team center back, he came and coached with us. Jonathan Osorio had just had surgery. He went away on vacation. He came back and coached with us. We had Aaliyah Scott, who is a young player from Pickering who's on a scholarship at West Virginia University. She came and coached. But we also had Olivia Smith. So Olivia Smith is a young baller here from Whitby. She came also and coached with us. So it was a beautiful opportunity to see the community come together to train high-level kids. You know, anyone who knows football, youth football in Toronto, knows that there's too much talent out here. There's talent all over the place, both on the male and the female side. And then it was a family affair run event. You know, Jonathan was obviously the face of the event, but, you know, him, myself, working in the background. You had his sister Janelle, who was leader of communication in the background. You had Auntie Pauline de Guzman. She was responsible for the lunch, and then his dad Jonathan, Bobby, was responsible for the equipment, and Julian was also there, lending a hand and giving us advice. So it was wonderful. It was great.
Well, speaking family, keeping it on the family note, I understand that you had a son with TFC. I think you have a daughter. What's that TFC situation? Is it still ongoing, and how is that working for you?
Yeah, my son is a young boy. He's only 10 years old. I have a son who's 10, a daughter who's 8 turning 9, and I have a younger daughter who's 4. My son Tiago was selected to play with TFC. Had a junior academy program run a few years ago, and he was selected to be on that team. Due to some unforeseen circumstances, they had to they had to close the team, so to speak. And because of that, we had to find a different solution for my son. And I myself coach. So I coach at an academy called Athletes Institute. Athletes Institute is actually it's a basketball program where the likes of Jamal Murray came through. Jamal Murray plays for the Denver Nuggets, for all the NBA fans there. It's located in Orangeville, and the owners, Jesse Tipping, decided that they wanted to create a better soccer program, and contacted a near dear friend of mine by the name of Courtney James to run a soccer program out of Athletes Institute. And Courtney contacted me and basically coerced me to come and coach with him at AI, we call it. And so, to make a long story short, I'm there now currently as an assistant coach, and we've brought over some players from my son's team at TFC to AI, and just continuing to develop these kids and keep them engaged into the game, a game that they love very much. And I think for me and for many other parents, we want to teach our kids life through the game of football. And the game football, soccer, teaches us so many different things that we need to do, or we need to be a part of in life. Being good teammates, being a leader, being a follower, listening to instructions, working hard, doing your homework. I mean, these are things that me as an adult, I have to continue to do, and continue to study, and continue to be better. And I think we try to teach the game of life through the game of football. So we do the same thing at AI. It's a wonderful program. So it's a little bit of a journey to get to.
Any competitive edge there? Seeing that you came from TFC, is there any drop, or is there any drop in the progression, or are you?
No. I mean, we have a different path in TFC. I mean, TFC will always be the top dog simply because they're TFC. They're in the city, and nobody really wants to compete with TFC because you can't. They have such a large draw. But my wife.
I'm talking about from a technical aspect, the skills and everything else.
I would say that we're not too far off. I would say, I mean, that's the older teams. Or the younger teams, I would say that we compete with them. We haven't competed against them because they don't carry younger teams anymore, unfortunately, at TFC, is why we decided to fill that void with our program. But yeah, I mean, it's all the same, really, just a different voice, and trying to continue to develop these kids to reach their goals.
Okay, before I put you in a sticky wicket here,
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned you have a daughter, and if I'm not mistaken, she also plays. So
the daughter
I don't want after this thing you're in trouble. So
well, I mean, you have daughters too, so they will find you.
yeah.
Find you, right?
I know your daughter's playing. So how is she doing? How is she doing? Is she taking the sport seriously?
You have to understand, like, my family specifically, we are a straight football family. Like, football, soccer is our thing. My wife played soccer. My father-in-law coached soccer. My Tiago, my son, his godfather is Julian de Guzman. His uncle, my kids' uncles are Julian and Jonathan de Guzman. My wife's first cousin is Dwayne de Rosario. So we're a football family through and through. My daughter, she plays for Ajax Soccer Club under the direction of Sylvia Forbes, who's a coach who played provincially. I can't remember if she played on the national team, but I know she played in college. And Richard Carey is one of the founders of the club, and it's a very, very unique environment for my daughter. She learns a lot. They really cater to each child differently. which most clubs I don't see doing. And so saying that she herself is becoming her own individual in the game. Very talented. She does things. She listens to me coach and talk to my son, and then she goes and she does it. So, which is really good. So I'm really proud of her from that perspective, and just hope and pray that she continues to enjoy the game and develop in the game.
All right. So I think we do the family, that big football family of yours. I don't think you mentioned the fact that you were a teacher.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm a 7th grade teacher at a school called St. Maria Goretti in South Scarborough. It's a wonderful community, wonderful school, wonderful staff. I've been teaching for the last 5 years. Previously, I was at a school called Cardinal Leger in East Scarborough. Teaching is my passion. My mother was a teacher for 34 or 5 years, maybe even a little less than that, at Francis Lieberman. So teaching is a passion. Teaching is something that I enjoy doing. I enjoy being with kids. I enjoy being part of their journey, and I enjoy just giving them a different perspective, and just with anything in life, even being a teacher, I'm learning as well. I'm learning about the youth. I'm learning about what goes on in their minds. I'm learning about how the world has evolved and changed since when I was a child. And I think teaching really allows me to see all of those perspectives and those different layers. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy being in the classroom. I enjoy reading with my kids and learning with my kids, and something that I'm going to continue to do for as long as I can, and do it with a smile on my face, and just educate, and then through the game of soccer, with my experiences of playing in Germany, and I also played. I don't know if I told you, I also played indoor soccer in Orlando for a year, and using those experiences of that experience, it was a real experience, but it's wonderful. So
yeah, well, to me, listening to you, and you keep adding in experience up to the last moment there, I think for kids, having somebody who have all these experiences is very interesting to them, and once you take your time and you say you think like a kid too, so I think you're shooing for the teaching profession.
yeah, well, I'm trying, man. I'm trying, again, I'm also, and I need to state this. I'm also a product of the teachers that I've had growing up. I went to Francis Lieberman Catholic School. I went to Pope John Paul Catholic School. I feel as though I had the best teachers coming from those schools. And then, not to mention the coaches that I had. I mentioned Dave Benning to you before, someone who meticulously taught me the game, and someone whom I credit for the player that I was for years. Mo Navo, another gentleman from Sierra Leone, he was my coach at West Rouge. Again, another man who took his time to teach me the game. Then, growing up a little bit older, I had the likes of Johnny Williams and Dave Sadu, men who I admire through the eyes of football, teaching me again the game, but also teaching me life. And then you look at the guys that I played with, the older guys, like Wayne Morgan. You have Marco Antonucci. You have Peter Firebrace. You have guys.
But before you run out of names,
Mm-hmm.
the public probably will want to figure out, watching you, seeing how you articulating and have all these experiences. I don't know if they're aware that what position you played.
I started off as a midfielder, and when I got to college, I kept going back.
Thank you.
I was a defender. I mean, I never started off as a defender. I started off as a midfielder, like I said, but I think over time, I found more comfort in playing left back or right back, simply because I worked on passing and crossing, something that I prided myself in knowing, learning how to ping a ball. I mean, if you talk to most of those guys, they'll tell you, you know, that I prided myself in something that I learned in Germany is how to hit a ball. I didn't know this growing up. I learned the skill at the older that I got, was to how to hit a ball, when to hit a ball.
I think I walk into this one. There's gonna come that goal now. This hit of the ball, this is setting it up now for that goal on the camp. All right, there we go. I look for that one. So
you have all of that. So you do what you please with all of that. You know, like that was okay. That was a nice goal, but let me just rewind it back to the game against Portmore United. I don't know if you were there, but I was able to cross it to I don't know if it was Chris Hanser or if it was Gregory Messon that scored. One of those guys scored.
Guzman scored.
Guzman. So I crossed it. I'm going to cross it, and he scored off my cross. And then, like I said, those little moments of you seeing your hard work come to fruition, something that our young people have to understand, that it takes hard work, it takes dedication, it takes suffering, it takes to suffer. How do you suffer? You know, what does your sufferation look like? You know, most of our kids here in Toronto don't understand how to suffer because everything's handed to them.
Yeah, but
not all cases, and don't get me.
On behalf of the kids, I would say sometimes suffering is such a emotional thing that if they don't get people like you, the way you explain things, to let them know what, especially like an interview like this, to let them know what it entails prior to. It's kind of hard when they're going through it now for you to come and say, well, yeah, this is what you go through and stuff. That's two different things, you know what I mean? So like people like you would be able to get them prepared, you know what I mean? It's kind of hard when you're hitting it right in the stream now.
Yeah, listen, I was once 17, I was once 18, so I get it. But I think there's also a fine line of hitting them with information and listening for information, or listening to the information. I think that's the difference. And, you know, again, I remember when I was playing, and I'm playing for Glen Shields in McLevin, and my Glen Shields team was stacked at Jonathan Westmass, Damien Pottinger, Justin Phillips, Kareem Morgan. I mean, it was a stacked team, and we're playing GS United, McLevin, and we're running these guys down. I mean, they had all the boys. They had Remy Martin and Wayne and Sean Long and the goalkeeper. I don't know the man's name, and this one, and Firebrace. And I remember going down the line, crossing, boom, scoring, and just talking crap and looking, and then during the run of play, one of their players comes up to me and says, Ains, you're a good player. We don't need to talk, just play. And I kind of looked at him, and then my first impression was, shut the beep up. That's my first impression, because that's just how I was as a player. But at that moment, I shut my mouth and I listened. I listened to experience. I listened to someone who played the game. And the person who told me that was a player that we all know by the name of Tommy Guzman, where he recognized and then he recognized the timing of when to tell me what he needed to tell me. And something that you know, to this day I think about, and I think, wow, man, like I was so fortunate to have not only just play with a guy like Tommy, but to be in company of guys from that generation who had that wisdom to take the time to teach, right? And so I will always be indebted to guys like that. We're talking guys like Tommy Guzman. I mean, his brother Gus Guzman too was an exceptional player. Daryl Gomez, another one, exceptional player. Renee Martin, exceptional player. T. Marshall, exceptional player, right? We never agreed all the time, but in the information that was relevant, I took it in. I took it in and I use it to this day.
Because what here before we wrap up. Canada just won an important game there.
Mm-hmm.
How you look at that, and any anticipation?
When I think of the Canadian national team, men's team, I just have goosebumps because I, like all other fans, all the Canadian fans, know that we are going to Qatar next year, right? And to be living in 2021, to have endured what we are enduring and continue to endure with this pandemic, this national team is giving so much joy to many people, not just soccer players, not just soccer loving people, but to people in general. And to see the youthfulness, to see the passion that these boys are showing the world is truly beautiful. To see that they're no longer afraid. They look at those boys play, they're no longer afraid. No one, Panama comes to Canada and we're looking down at these guys like, who are you guys?
I think the team is knitted. I don't think there's a concern there, but I wouldn't go as far as you to say they're in Qatar, because you gotta, you gotta dot your I's and cross your T's.
I'll go on record to say that they will be in Qatar November next year.
Yeah, well, that's good. As a fan, that's what you want to hear.
Belief. You have to understand the belief of the team, though.
Yeah.
Look at the belief of the team. They believe that they deserve to be on top of the world with the best. And you have Alphonso Davies playing in Bayern Munich. I mean, okay, that's one end of the spectrum. One end of the spectrum. Okay, good. But then you have a man like Richard Arrea, who's a friend of mine, by the way, who doesn't take any crap from anybody. That you didn't have that type of bravado before. Canadians didn't show that before. They didn't show that, we belong here too. They didn't have guys fighting other guys. You look at the game when they played in Mexico, Azteca. We weren't backing down. That mental fear that would break us down in previous years, that's not happening. If you want to break us down, you have to beat us. And that bravado, that character that they're showing right now, I've never seen a Canadian team show that.
It's all about now keeping it tight in terms of the discipline. So when you hit the door back down, that's good, but most of the game is going to be on the road now, so you had to be smart now too.
3 more wins. More wins.
Well,
3 more wins for Canada, we're going to Qatar. And then you can call me and then you could say, you know what, Ainsley, you were bang on.
Yeah, Ains, you have been a wealth of information.
Thank you, sir.
As I expected. And no shortage for information, that's for sure. And I want to thank you for all the information you've given, and wish you all the best.
Appreciate it.
And success too. And,
appreciate it.
You take care and stay healthy.
You as well. Thank you. Take care. That's it. Cool.